Hey everyone, I'm back again with my stuffy nose and my notes. So I don't know if I can call it a book review. It actually, because I love my audiobooks, I came across this one and it's actually an audio drama. So I have a whole description on what this is because I'm like, are there a bunch of these? Is this a normal thing? Like, I didn't know it was an audio drama until after I listened to the whole thing. I was on the way to, my niece and I actually listened to it. We were on our way to Florida to visit my in-laws and drop my niece off. And this was one of the shorter, because we had listened to a whole book and then we put this one on, and was a shorter book, which is all we needed, and turns out that it was not actually a book. And it's by, I don't know, do I have it written down? Jen Silverman, I think, wrote it. I think I got so obsessed with the fact that it wasn't like a book that I forgot to write her name, but I think it's Jen Silverman, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure I have it written down here somewhere. Anyway, so I was like, is this a thing? This audio drama thing? And yes, it turns out that it is a thing, and I don't think it's very well known yet, so get on it because they're awesome. So it's not a non-traditional audiobook because it has a cast of narrators, I guess you would call it. So where an audiobook has a narrator that is kind of explaining the book, where this is sort of performed like a television show or a movie, like the old school radio shows that when they didn't have TV yet. That's what it is like. So it's like going back to, I don't even remember when that was, the 40s, 50s. All I can think of is A Christmas Story with Ralphie listening to his thing, trying to get the code for so he can win his BB gun or whatever. So it's like watching a TV series with your eyes closed is how this describes it when I was looking it up. There are hundreds upon hundreds of audio fiction, audio drama productions ranging from independent podcasts to large studio productions with famous actors. So you could really dig in and find some really cool ones. They have kind of a bunch of genres, mysteries, thrillers, comedy, science fiction, horror. I would love to listen to that. I think it would actually scare me more than watching. Romance, historical stories, and the list goes on. You can find them on Audible. You can find them on Spotify, I found out. And they probably have them on other apps. Like, I'm sure Apple Podcast probably has them, and Amazon, I'm sure, on there. They have Amazon Music, and Amazon Music has podcasts and stuff like that too. So I'm sure you can find it on all that. So, but this particular one that I'm going to talk about in a second is actually an Audible original. So it says it's a particularly polished example with a recognizable cast, and it was done in cinematic production style. So I'll get to that in a second. The format is interesting because it sits somewhere between an audiobook, a podcast, and television. And you still get the freedom to listen while driving, walking, or doing whatever you do while you listen. But instead of having a book to read, you hear characters interacting inside a fully produced world, which is it. And when you go into it not knowing this, it is wild. So the first scene, I think, is the phone ringing. And while that's fine, like, sure, you can add sounds, but then it is somebody answering the phone and another person talking, and it is distinctly two different people. It's not like the girl who did my audiobooks, that produced my audiobook. She did the men's voice in a deeper voice, and she kind of changed the accents a little bit. It is not like that at all. It is a full on, like it says, watching a TV show with your eyes closed. It's really cool. So I'll get into them. And to if you want to look for these to listen to, you would call it an audio drama or a fiction podcast, scripted fiction, full cast, narrative fiction. But I would say audio drama is the first word I would search. I don't know. Did you know they existed? I didn't. I had no clue that these even existed until I happened upon this one, and I thought it was a audiobook, and I'm so glad that it wasn't. It was very captivating is a good word. I was very intrigued by it. I didn't know what was going on through the whole thing. So, like I said, the first scene is, this phone ringing and this man answering, and this woman's like, "Hey, it's Miranda. I got your number from a friend, blah, blah, blah." It was so cool. So, now we'll get into my notes. This is the non spoiler. I'll let you know when we get into more spoiling if you want to listen to it, if you haven't listened to it. If you have listened to it, oh my gosh, how long have you known about these things? I feel so naive about this. Anyway, so I already talked to you about the fact that it's an audio drama. It's not a single narrator. There's a full cast, and I'm going to get into who was in it in a second. One sentence review would be it is fascinating, slightly bizarre, completely absorbing audio drama that made me forget I was listening to an audiobook and feel like I was eavesdropping on private phone calls of some of the most famous men of the 1980s. So this takes place in the 1980s. They even have the phone sounding like, like a wall phone, not a cell phone. So it's inspired by a real life story of Miranda Grovesner, Grovesner, I think it's pronounced. The drama follows a mysterious woman who begins calling famous, powerful men in the 1980s. She builds intimate relationships largely over telephone, presenting herself as a glamorous, wealthy, connected, desirable. These men begin opening up to her about marriages, careers, insecurities, depression, and private fears, and many become captivated by this woman they have never actually seen. And right away they crave for her to call. I don't think she ever gives out. I think eventually she gives out her phone number, but only to certain ones that she feels comfortable with. There's one that gives her a little friction, and so I don't think she ever gives him her number. I think I can say that without spoiling too much. But so the question that is driving the story, the driving question is, who exactly is Miranda Grovesner? So the vibe of this is seductive, mysterious, intimate, voyeuristic, psychological, witty, and very 1980s. So yeah, all those things. So now is the cast. So, and I don't know how to say her name, Rachael Brosnan as Miranda. And I think you know her as the marvelous Miss Mabel. I don't know if you've seen that. Talk about amazing. She is amazing in that. It's on Amazon Prime. And sorry, side note. She is the marvelous Miss Maisel, and she's this female comedian, and she kind of fell into being a comedian back in the day where women weren't really supposed to be doing that kind of stuff, and she is a little raunchy about it too, which makes her like, comedians were getting arrested at a certain point because of their vulgar content. So it's so cool that she's doing this character in here a little bit later in the 80s instead of in the 50s and 60s, I believe that was. Anyway, so it's her. Then there's Josh Groban as Billy Joel, Milo Ventimiglia as Richard Perry, Morgan Spector as Paul Schrader, Harry Lloyd as Brian McNally, and John Benjamin Hickey as Buck Henry. I can't even read my own writing. Buck Henry. Sorry. So these are the big guys that are famous doing. There's the musicians, obviously. I think both Billy Joel and Richard Perry was a musical producer, maybe. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. And then the other guys were like filmmakers and restaurant owners and things like that that are very popular going on right now. And so I guess the premise depends on people becoming captivated by a voice. So the performance has to make us believe that someone could pick up a telephone, talk to this woman that they had never met, and become obsessed with hearing from her again, which they all do. And it's so cool how they make this come to life rather than just narrating. So what makes it interesting is there's something surprisingly modern, quote unquote, about this story that takes place in the 1980s. It's almost like she is like a, oh my God, just lost influencer, but she's a telephone influencer rather than a internet influencer, kind of, where people get obsessed with these people on Instagram and not Facebook, but TikTok and all the other ones that are out there that I don't know about because I'm old. But so they kind of get obsessed with her. And this is just by the phone, not dating apps or social media, just a phone. And the people on the other end fill in everything they cannot see, but they want to believe. So she leads them to believe certain things. And then they create this image of her and this persona that she just hints around at. It's very cool. So I guess what that all is kind of giving you is like, how are these people, how much of their attraction is actually about the other person and how much is about the person they are creating in their own imagination. And that's kind of, I think, her fascination. I think she's just as obsessed with it as they are. So it's very cool. So she leads them to believe that they met at a party, or she leads them to believe that they've talked in person, where then they just assume they have because they've met so many people. And it's always, she says it's at a party, and so they've met a gajillion people at these parties. So they're like, oh yeah, I probably met. And so she gives other little hints towards this to narrow it down to someone that they think of that must be her because they don't remember her name and blah, blah, blah. So without giving any spoilers, now I'm going to get into some spoilers. So if you don't care about spoilers, stay. If you have already listened to this audio drama, stay. If not, please don't, because I want you to go listen to it. If you're not going to listen to it, then stay. So anyway, so you have, I already said all this. Yeah, we're talking about spoilers. So, all right, here we go. I've got some stuff, or I'm going to just, let's get into it. I wish I could like talk to you back and forth, but I can't. So Miranda Grovesner is a constructed telephone persona. The woman behind the voice is not living the glamorous, connected life she describes. The persona gives her access to a world and a version of herself that she otherwise does not have. The fascinating part is that the relationships become emotionally real, even though their foundation isn't entirely real. It's pretty much just a lie. The men become attached to Miranda, somewhat desperately to meet her, and the longer the relationships continue, the harder it becomes to maintain the boundary between the real woman and the woman that she has invented. So she gets caught up a few times and pisses a lot of them off, like, because she ends up standing them up because she's like, oh yeah, I'm at this hotel down the street, I'll meet you downstairs for a drink. Well, she's not there, she's somewhere else. So then she has to be like, oh, I fell asleep, or whatever. She comes up with all these different excuses. And one guy, I think it's Buck, that ends up, the other guys are obsessed in a yearning kind of way, but he is like calling her out on her shit. Like, he's calling BS, and he starts asking all the other people that she mentions if they've heard of her, and of course they have, because she's called them and done the same thing to them. But then he starts asking the questions that she doesn't think anyone's going to ask, because that might make them look stupid or make a fool out of them. And this man does not care. And he asks all around and finds out that no one has actually ever seen her. There's always an excuse, there's always a miscommunication, and she ends up, well, let me read. So she lies about who she is, but she also listens to these men in ways that perhaps very few people in their lives do. They tell her things they are afraid to tell other people, and Miranda appears to need these relationships too. That's why she is difficult to reduce to as an easy villain. The persona is not only a tool for manipulating famous men, but it also allows her to inhabit the woman that she wants to be. And she's not spreading this stuff. She is having these deep conversations with them, even though she's lying about who she is, helping them work through some stuff. So she's almost like a muse to them. And I guess the whole point of it is that it's too bad she couldn't have just been herself, but that's okay. So the whole thing is that it wasn't that she fooled these men, it's that in a way they helped create her persona. She gave them a voice on the telephone and they filled everything else in with their imagination. So she pretended to be someone, but she was very vague on who that someone was. She just kind of said, "We met one time at a party and I got your number from this person." And then they start asking all these questions to her. What is your hair color? What do you look like? Blah blah blah. And so she'll say, "I'm a model." And so they've met a gajillion models, but then they again think, I remember that one model that I didn't know, I don't remember her name, and they just assume it's her. And so they create this whole thing. So then that's how they become emotionally real, because she is being sincere when she's talking to them, and when they pour their heart out to her, she's there for them. And so she's a little obsessed with this whole kind of back and forth too. But once they get a little bit suspicious, she backs off and moves on to another person. At one point, she even starts with, I think it was Richard Perry. She gives a different name. And I won't tell you the name just in case you want to know. Figure that out by yourself. But she even, I think it was him that she goes as far as she dares, maybe looks aren't important, because she doesn't really look like who they're imagining that she looks like. So she goes as far as to meet up with one of them that she feels very connected to. And it turns out to be disappointing. And then that Buck Henry, who he is so obsessed with the whole thing that he goes and, he is searching, he's getting private investigators involved. And finally, after she meets the one guy and it didn't turn out the way either of them thought, she calls Buck and they kind of work out their issues with each other. And I don't think she's learned a lesson from it, because she does continue to keep going, but I don't think she will ever put herself in the vulnerability state again. And I don't think she'll push as hard as she did. And I don't think she'll get as deep. This is all me just imagining that she's just going to keep going with this whole thing, because she's obsessed and she needs this. She now is living that Miranda person's life on the phone. Whenever she feels lonely, that's what she does. Don't ask me how she gets these numbers. It's pretty cool how she does it, but the actors do a really good job. I'm definitely going to be looking for more of these, because it looks like there's a bunch that have actors that we know, that are known actors on the big screen, and we can listen to them do these. It's just another way to fill in their repertoire, their God, what is it called? Portfolio, I guess, as you will, or make a little money on the side. It's like their little side hustle, I guess. All right, I'm starting to babble. I'm gonna go, but I hope that was good. So not really like a book review or anything, just kind of a talk on this different way of listening to audiobooks being like a kind of audio TV show, which I think is really cool. And I'm going to definitely queue a bunch of onto my Audible, and I'm going to see if they're on Spotify. I think they are on Spotify. I'm going to go dig them out because that might be an easier access to get to without having to wait to get my free book every month. I don't know if you know that, but Spotify has the audiobooks. You have 10 hours per month if you have I think I have the whatever the premium Spotify thing. So I get 10 hours a month included, but you can pay an extra. I'm going to have the hiccups. You can pay an extra, I think $11.99 a month to get unlimited listening. So bonus. So I think Audible is $8.99 to $14.99 for getting one book for free per month. So, weigh it out, see what you like. It is nice to be able to, if you can't sit and read, if your life is too crazy, to be able to do it this way, throw in some headphones and listen. I even like to have the physical book and the audio, and on Spotify you can page match, which is really nice too. So anyway, I'll try to remember to put all this in the show notes, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I didn't babble too much or give anything away for you. Until next time, see you later.